Hi guys, my name is Dante, and welcome back to SCP-682. Really planning to finish this in this episode, so yeah, a grand finale. So I didn't do anything to the details of the scales or anything in between the episode, as I said I might do, just because lately the only thing I want to do is party and not do anything useful. So instead of 682, I actually drew this guy. Last time you guys again said a lot of good stuff. First of all, we're definitely leaving this reptile furless. Apparently there is no actual reason for it to be with fur in some of the fan art online, so yeah, let's just forget about it. A bunch of other cool stuff you said, like we should play more with the size of the scales. The orange stripe doesn't work at all. We should make it more like a real reptile patterns, so we'll look that up to make it look correct. Also, I have a little reference right here. I have acquired it absolutely randomly. And it's actually literally the same color as what I'm painting here. Which is not a lot of help, right? But yeah, it has a word China on its belly, and there's nothing else to it. Also, some of you guys said it would be cool to add maybe an exoskeleton kind of uniform on the agents. The guy in the back looks kind of out of place, maybe too cool, dramatic or something. Like, I haven't really addressed him at all, so we'll see how exactly we'll change him. I think we should bring him closer, like generally the perspective should be a bit less strong. Like, this guy should be bigger, this guy should be bigger to make things work a bit better overall. So yeah, let's continue. I'll probably start with doing something with the background and then we'll move on to the scales and other big and little details. So let's start. Alright. This is it for tonight, for me. Felt so lousy the whole process, and only at the end felt kind of a bit better, but it's already time to go to bed. So yeah, I've been jumping all over the composition, adding stuff I felt like adding. Same thing you can say about any of the process of mine. Changed the background lighting to show some kind of actual spotlight over there. The worst part so far is the dark spots on the reptile. It's the hardest part for me to make it work, just because it's a very, very complex surface, obviously. So yeah, I'll work on it more next morning. Right now, 682 looks like some kind of burglar from a cartoon. Like, it's not horrible everywhere. Generally, the stripes, they kind of work well. I like the way they go in this area, really nice. But yeah, more implementation is required. Added a whole bunch of spikes on the tail. I think it makes more than enough sense to do that for 682. Another arm over here. And of course, a lot of work on the agent's outfits. I think it looks pretty cool and still military enough, even though with a lot of lights all over the place. I don't really care at this point to make it look legit, like stealthy or anything. Whatever. It's kinda cooler this way. Generally, I gotta say, the main thing that makes the picture better as I keep working on it, only how thought through the fog is. None of the details really matter that much, but the way the fog over this main guy right here, the front agent, in the previous version it wasn't that well done, and right now I kind of worked it through a bit better, made it softer and nicer, and it looks a lot more like a painting now. I don't know, it looks cool. So yeah, never underestimate the importance of the air perspective. Yeah, also made the neck longer, even longer. made it longer twice in this series. Played around with the details of the exoskeleton and the helmet. I don't know, looks kind of cool. Basically drew a bunch of black silhouettes of the metal and then added highlights where it made sense, where it's kind of facing the light source. That's pretty much all I did. And then with the tiny black lines, I added like details that are, you know, this is the only way you can expose details in this situation, which is good for me, you know. I just add some tiny lines somewhere and it kind of looks like it's a highly detailed armor, whatever. Just like something like this, whatever this is, you know. Kinda looks cool. Anyway, let's stop wasting time and actually switch to the tomorrow. Hey, what's up? I'm having the worst mood swings of all time. That means if right now I'm feeling motivated, in 15 minutes I will want to rewatch all the episodes of Friends or something, so let's start before this is gone. So I think we should work a bit more on this spot of light in the back. I think it should be a bit more solid and consistent in the way the light is spreading, so it should get darker like this in here. So that's one thing, because right now, comparing to the previous version, this spot became like super flat, which is not looking very good. This was kind of better in that sense. And the other thing that is the worst right now is the dark spots on the SCP. I think we should tone them down a little bit. Generally they make sense even though they're not finished just quality-wise, detail-wise, but even beyond that they're just too high contrast. We should tone them down a bit. Aside from that, we'll just jump around and add some tiny last moment details after that. So yeah, that'll be it. So let's start. Alright, doing some cool progress. This is another morning, by the way. Adding details all over the place with the foliage and the stones, and most importantly with the scales on the 682. Really felt like I finally found a good amount of opacity and the size for the brush to work with the scales. So I lowered the flow quite a lot and made the brush size somewhat around a half of the diameter of a scale that I work on. So I would be able to do this kind of movement and kind of get the shape of the scale I need right away without any effect of an outline of the scale the way I had before or anything like that. And at the same time it would be small enough so I would have the proper shape as well. And while strokes being pretty transparent, they blend in well into the general geometry of the character, so it worked pretty cool. Also, I made the stripes of the darker color much brighter and then used the darker color to add scales on top, which resulted in a much better looking situation, like I was actually adding darker scales like this. And I kinda like it now. But what's interesting, after I will finish all the scales all over the character, what I'll be doing more, which is something I already started doing yesterday, I will be adding bigger shadows on top of them, like actually darkening the scales where I need them to get darker or making them brighter, to make them follow the actual shape of the character better. Kind of finding a good balance between how much these scales stick out and how much they actually follow the surface. A good thing to work with using the double transparency of the brush, opacity plus flow control, that I can actually create a semi-transparent overlay to darken all the details together and make them follow one angle of the surface in general. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, made the lighting in the background a bit more consistent and everything. Pretty much I'm actually starting to really like what I'm getting here. So I think we're really close to the end. So let's finish this now. Oh, by the way, one more thing before I forget, because I will. I actually started using keyboards just about when I started doing the very latest smaller details, like these dots. This is the first time where I really felt like I really need the keyboard now, because all the methods of eyedropping, like color picking from the canvas, without a keyboard are really slow, no matter what you do. Actually having Alt key right here really allows you to become much faster while doing smaller details. Generally, throughout the whole process, you don't need to be this fast with the color picking, because generally you still have to like think through what you're actually doing, think more with the geometry, and that kind of speed is not really required on that stage, on most stages of working on the painting. But when I'm getting to this smaller details, I really don't have to think all that much, because what I'm doing right now is just adding spots of dust or something, smaller details that don't really follow the geometry all that much or something like that. What's really important to me right now though is that the details wouldn't look like they're like boring cylindrical lines like this. So what I have to do is I'm using one color to create a shape. I'm thinking right here it would be good. And then quickly picking up color next to the detail and making it more of a custom shape, like cutting it away a little bit here and there. And now I'm having like, you see this little bit of dry grass or something that was picked up. Now it looks cool because it's not just an actual line drawn with a digital brush, it's actually a complex shape. And imagine if I would have to like pick the color every time with the finger, like removing the pencil and color picking like this, it would be super slow because there will be a whole lot of this kind of dots all over the painting. So when I really have to work on a huge amount of silhouettes, of tiny silhouettes like this, it's best to have a really like lightning speed color picking method, and the keyboard button is really good in that sense. So literally this whole keyboard, I only use one key on it, only the Alt key to pick up the color from the canvas. Okay, I think this is it. I think this is the level of detail I'm actually okay with. I think this is pretty cool looking. Yeah. So one more note on the scales, I actually kind of switched from the idea that I had here, that the grid will be a good base for the scales. I actually did them differently now. They actually are in the chess order. The grid wasn't exactly helpful, because the grid would do this kind of positioning, and what I did was more like this, which obviously looks much better. And another important thing on how to spread details on the painting, obviously I didn't do the same amount of definition of the scales everywhere. Most of the definition is on the brightest area, so this hand right here, this arm, is very highly detailed. Every scale, especially the dark ones, have highlights and shadows on them and everything, so a huge amount of details here, but a lot less detail where it's much darker, because that's how lighting works. The less light, the less detail we can see, so it makes sense to do it this way. So I added some bullet holes right here, and one of them actually grew teeth already. Kinda looks fun. Also I added tiny reptilian irises everywhere on all the eyeballs. Looks a lot creepier now, I think. So yeah, a lot more work on smoke, dust, and tiny particles everywhere. Particles really make it look a lot more like things are in motion, like all the dirt is being picked up from the ground. It really looks like a still frame from some kind of dynamic action, you know? A good thing to add in this kind of composition. So yeah, tell me guys what you think. I know it's probably not perfect, but I'm actually happy with everything I'm seeing right now, which is good enough for me. I like the lighting, the composition. I like the contrast of green and red in the main spot of the picture. A little contrast of green and brownish over here to have two main spots, two main characters, the main dialogue highlighted a little bit. So yeah, this is it. I think it's probably one of the most impressive SCPs that I've done so far. Looking pretty cool. Tell me guys what you think. Tell me what SCP to do next. I won't start it right away because we have some other stuff to do like Overpain, and a couple of tutorials are coming up soon, so look forward to that. But yeah, SCP is definitely one of the favorite series on this channel for me, so we'll definitely continue doing this. And I thank you for watching if you did. I guess you did if you're here. Leave a like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Wear night vision goggles inside out so they would glow. Do whatever you want. And I will see you in the next one. Bye. Yeah, it's good.